Hi, everybody. I'm Claire Schubert, and on behalf of the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Foundation, I am so excited to welcome all of our students here today from all over Michigan, as well as states from across the country, to our virtual author visit. If you enjoy this program today, I want to let you know that we have other author and illustrator videos on our website, as well as lots of free virtual resources and field trips. So please check them out at our website, devoslearningcenter.org. So we've just celebrated President's Day in our country. So I think it's fitting that today we honor some other very special inhabitants of the White House, the loyal and beloved pets of the presidents. The pets, the animals, it's so exciting. So with us today are Kathy Collison and Janice Campbell, two friends, journalists, and authors who worked together to write my new favorite book, Meet the Pets, Presidential Animals from A to Z. Kathy and Janice will be reading part of their book with us, as well as sharing the process of working together to write a nonfiction book. Some of you watching today have already submitted questions, and I want to invite all of you to use that Q&A feature on Zoom to ask your questions throughout the program. We will get to as many as we can at the end of the program today, but feel free, if a question strikes you once you've heard our authors say something today, just enter that right into the Q&A. So Kathy and Janice, welcome. Happy President's Day. And thank you for joining us and our students today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. We are so excited to learn from you today. So I've had a chance to read this fabulous book already. Actually, you can probably see it on the bookshelf behind me, as well as my favorite White House pet, a picture of Liberty, the golden retriever with President Ford, right? But I'm excited to have you read the book to our audience today. I will return at the end of the program with some audience questions. And to get us started, we actually have two questions already from our viewers. Second and third graders from BCMA would like to know, where are you from? And fourth graders in Southgate, Michigan, as well as third graders at Explorer Elementary in Kentwood are wondering, what inspired you to write a book about presidential pets?
Thank you, Claire. I'm from Metro Detroit. I grew up on the west side, and now I live on the east side by Lake St. Clair in Grosse Pointe.
And I'm from Battle Creek, and now I live in northern Michigan near Traverse City in a little town called Beulah. And like so many other animal lovers and journalists, we were excited to see pets returning to the White House after the last presidential election. And that's what really got us thinking about writing the book. We thought it was a great time to look at the topic of presidential pets again. So we began researching presidential pets and thinking about how we would structure our book to make it unique. And we decided to tell stories alphabetically, with fun poems written to share stories with young readers, and then additional interesting facts for older readers. We hired an artist and a book designer and a copy editor to help us bring our vision to life. And then we got busy doing plenty of research.
And because we are journalists, we also looked at how much the press and media loved to cover pets. That gave us another theme. Well, I'm going to let Janice start out our read aloud.
Animals don't run for election, but a history of first pets shows quite a selection. Short or tall, big or small, these critters had the press tailing them all.
A is for alligator, a wild and wonderful reptile. President Hoover's son had a pair for a while. Before the family moved to Pennsylvania Avenue, it was see you later, alligators, off to the zoo.
D is for a Portuguese water dog called Bo. This pup of President Obama's could sure steal the show. People loved him far and wide, with the media following his every stride.
C is for chickens. There was quite a flock. At times their eggs kept the White House in stock. One thing we'd like to know, how often did President Teddy Roosevelt's rooster crow?
D is for Duker. What on earth is that? A little antelope from South Africa, which got the welcome mat. President Coolidge was happy to give it a home, yet the antelope needed more space to roam.
E is for elephant, a gift to several presidents, not well suited for a White House residence, one to President Reagan, which he greeted with elation, a token of friendship from the Sri Lanka nation.
F is for Fala, President Roosevelt's cool canine, a terrier friend so famous and fine. In a bronze statue, you can see him today. This faithful first dog is here to stay.
G is for goat, a glorious one from Greece. The gift to President Truman came with gratitude and peace. A rare mountain climber from the island of Crete. Children visiting the zoo thought he was neat to meet.
H is for horse. There were more than a few. President Washington's Nelson and Blueskin were two. When done with their work, they retired to his farm, where they were cherished and loved and came to no harm.
I is for Ike, called Old Ike by the press. The grumpy ram could cause such distress. President Wilson allowed him to wander the lawn, corralling the sheep and grazing at dawn.
J is for Josiah, or Josh for short. This baby badger knew how to hold court. Another critter in President Teddy Roosevelt's crew until he found a home at New York's Bronx Zoo.
K is for Komodo dragons, fierce and cool creatures. These long lizards are famous for their fantastic features. Indonesia gave President George H.W. Bush a pair with detailed instructions on feeding and care.
L is for Liberty, top dog of President Ford. She romped and played and was never bored. Upstairs, downstairs, inside out, she was free to dash about.
M is for Misty Malarkey Yin Yang, an independent cat. At President Carter's dinner, he made a grand entrance, in fact. When young Amy played the violin, he would sing along. His meows made music sweet and strong.
N is for the National Zoo, which has been a perfect place for White House animals that needed more space. Thanks to President Cleveland, who gave it his okay, the zoo welcomes animal ambassadors to this very day.
O is for opossum, a critter most would not call awesome. President Hoover adopted one. Billy was his name. He became a school sports hero, deserving of his fame.
P is for Pushinka. President Kennedy loved her smiling face. After all, this pup's mom had been in outer space. Some feared this cute canine might spy on the nation. Instead, this loyal pup became a media sensation.
Q is for the queen of the Capitol cows. Pauline Wayne earned lots of wows. That White House pasture she just loved to munch. So President Taft had plenty of milk for lunch.
R is for a raccoon given to President Coolidge for dinner. Named Rebecca, this charming critter ended up a winner. First Lady Grace often took her out for a stroll and even let Rebecca join the Easter egg roll.
S is for socks. President Clinton's cool cat. As a website guide for children, he was all that. Even today, the story of socks is presidential history that truly rocks.
T is for turkey, delivered for President Lincoln's meal. His son Tad wanted no part of that deal, so the president took the bird off the table, and there began a political fable.
U is for ugliest dog. Now that's a mean name for President Bush's Millie, who became the author of her very own book after a magazine made fun of her look.
V is for Vito, President Garfield's pet, an odd name for a dog, but the pres was upset. He wanted to show other politicians presidents had the power to nix their positions.
W is for Wallaby, a cousin of the kangaroo. The present to President Coolidge caused a big to-do. He had so many exotic pets that this critter too was happily sent to the National Zoo.
X is for X-ray, a check for a bone break, something President Biden's foot had to take, a slip playing with his dog, but he was okay, and with Mighty Major, he will continue to play.
Y is for Yuki, a true rescue mix, left at a gas station. He was in a fix. Later, President Johnson, known as LBJ, adopted the dog and made his day.
Z is for zebra, another gift of a pet for President Teddy Roosevelt to get. But he already had so many critters, and he couldn't find any zebra sitters.
So that's the end of our read aloud, but now we want to share our favorite pages and some of the research we put into these pages. Of course, since this is an alphabet book, we had to start with A. We found lots of animals and lots of tales about alligators, but the one we could verify, that means fact check to be true, was about Allen Hoover. President Hoover's son had 2 alligators. We looked online at the Hoover Presidential Library and then wanted to double and even triple check. So called an archivist at the library, a specialist for historic papers and research. And yet there were letters to Mrs. Hoover about Allen's alligators. We could even find out that the alligators in those letters went to the zoo for safekeeping. And we looked behind the art on the page. Is that document collaged? We do that with every page. Now let's turn to B and F. And here's Janice on those famous first dogs.
We loved covering presidential pets, including Bo, the top dog for the Obama family, in Yak's Corner. Here's a cover of Yak's Corner shown here, where Kathy and I were reporters and editors for many years. Yak's Corner was a news magazine for young readers at the Detroit Free Press and later part of the newspaper and education program in Michigan Kids, a literacy outreach program. Now, President Obama famously promised his daughters a new puppy for their love and support during the long presidential campaign. And so after he was elected, he kept that promise, which he made win or lose, but he won and they got their puppy. And it was big news across the country. There were so many stories in the media speculating on what kind of dog they would get and when they would get that puppy. And once they did, the public loved keeping track of Bo, and so did the media. He was a favorite first dog. And in the book, our artist Wendy painted Bo in a picture at the White House garden called the Kitchen Garden because First Lady Michelle Obama added that garden to promote healthy eating and good nutrition. And later the family added a second dog, Sonny, another Portuguese water dog, but Bo was definitely the top dog in their family. And speaking of popular first dogs, Bella was definitely an important dog in history. He was widely covered in the press and people just loved him, especially his owner, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was nicknamed FDR. President Roosevelt loved his Scottish Terrier so much that he is forever memorialized in a statue with the president at the FDR Memorial on the Mall in Washington, D.C. And he's the only pet to be featured in a presidential memorial in Washington. And then if you look closely at the book illustration, our artist collaged in the background a typewritten page from a very famous speech where the president talked about a political opponent making up a false story about his beloved dog. Also, one more note about the president. The presidential library system began with President Roosevelt in the late 1930s. Now, Kathy will share the story behind letter G.
Well, for G, we wanted to find another great story. And we did. We found a great goat story. This story we found online through historic newspapers. And we saw a headline about this rare goat given to President Truman as a thank you from Greece. Yep, another G name. And this rare goat, well, you can imagine a mountain climbing goat would have no place or space in the White House. So this goat did go right to the National Zoo. But while we researched President Truman, we also found out he was a president that placed a bowling alley in the White House. That was such a cool fact. So we wanted to show the bowling alley and the art, and our artists had some fun. You'll see the goat on the alley, and then you'll also see the newspaper headline about this great gift. Now we're going to skip ahead to the letter L, and here's Janice.
Well, I'm going to tell you about another famous first dog. I've had two golden retrievers myself, so that makes me love Liberty, the golden retriever belonging to President Gerald R. Ford, that much more. In the book, we share a fun story about the president getting locked out of the White House in the middle of the night, or really, or more accurately, in the very early morning hours, when he took Liberty outside for a potty break and was briefly locked outside. First Lady Betty Ford wrote about this surprising story in her memoir, The Times of My Life, and we found that story online at the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Library and Museum. Also, we found plenty of historic photos of Liberty at the Presidential Library and Museum, including Liberty playing in the South Lawn Fountain. So our artist shows Liberty splashing in the water in our book. And then she collaged a letter in the background on the page. And that letter is from first daughter, Susan Ford. Liberty had so many fans and requests for photos that the family made a potograph stamp to autograph her photos. And in the letter, Susan explains that they made a rubber stamp to protect Liberty's paws. Also, did you know President Ford is our only president from Michigan? He played college football at U of M. Now Kathy will share the letters N and Q.
Well, N isn't just for one animal. We told you about the goat that went to the zoo. Well, so many gifts to early presidents and then later to our country needed a place to go. So N is for the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. It's part of the Smithsonian. And in that history that we checked, luckily we found out for all these other presidents that it was President Cleveland that okayed the bill, a proposal in Congress, to start this wonderful zoo. We wanted to find a primary or firsthand source online, and we did, both through the National Archives and Library of Congress, and then even the US House of Representatives has a great history site. So we asked that archivist to send us the image of that very first proposal in the late 1800s to start a zoo for our country. That's part of the fun in researching to find these original firsthand sources. Now I'm going to jump over to Q. When you think of Q, that's very tough for alphabet book writers. It's a hard letter. And before we got to too many unusual animals or names, we found again a newspaper headline that jumped right out at us: the Queen of Capital Cows. That was for Pauline Wayne. Now, this cow was a practical gift from a Wisconsin dairy farm to President Taft, and it got so much coverage in the newspapers. Back in that time, remember, they didn't have a corner grocery store. So White House and family and staff needed a bit of a farm there: chickens, cows, horses for transportation. However, Pauline Wayne became, as several writers have said, like the Kardashians of the day, a celebrity cow that captivated the media, stories across the country and pictures, because the cow even got lost once on a way to a big dairy show. Nobody could get enough of this cow. The Library of Congress on their website has a great little film talking about this popular cow. Now we're going to move ahead to R. Back to you, Janice.
All right, thank you. Another unique celebrity pet that people just adored following was Rebecca the raccoon. She was originally given to President and Mrs. Coolidge, intended to be a part of the Thanksgiving meal. But the First Lady, Grace Coolidge, and the President thought the raccoon was so cute, she became a treasured pet instead. She had a special collar, and they sometimes walked her on a leash. And newspapers across the country loved covering stories about Rebecca, including this one from the Cincinnati Enquirer on Christmas Eve of 1926, where they announced her name, which was big news: Rebecca. She went many places with the first family, including on vacations, and even attended the White House Easter egg roll. You can find plenty of historic photos like the one shown here and newspaper stories online covering her adventures. Now Kathy will share the letter S.
S is for socks. I haven't told you this, but I will now. I'm a feline fan, so I love to read about Socks, the cool cat of President Bill Clinton. Now, long before we started this book, I was following stories about Socks when I worked at the newspaper. We even had a Q&A column where young readers like yourself could write in with questions. One of the ones was, what did he eat? It was dry food at the time. And we even made Socks our pet of the week in our weekly magazine for young readers. You could say Janice and I both loved covering pets and animals from the very start. And someone else knew how popular Socks was. That was President Bill Clinton. So it's not surprising that he made Socks the guide to the first ever White House for Kids websites. You see, the internet was a little new then, and he wanted to make sure kids could have their own White House website. You can find that website and many of them frozen in time. It's another great resource to check out when you do some research. Okay, now we're going to jump ahead to you and back to Janice. By the way, the gingerbread house in the picture, that's a White House tradition, and the Clintons indeed had a house of socks one year. Okay, Janice, to you.
Thank you. So you can also be a tricky letter for alphabet book writers. But when we read about Millie, the Springer Spaniel belonging to President George H.W. Bush and First Lady Barbara Bush being named the ugliest dog by the Washingtonian magazine in their annual best and worst issue, we thought two things. One, that's really mean and she's actually a good looking dog. And two, that would be a great story for the letter U. So the president, first lady, and Millie took that news pretty well, and she went on to be, and the magazine went on to send some dog treats over as an apology. But Millie went on to become more popular than ever, even publishing a #1 best-selling book with the help of the first lady called Millie's Book. And we showed Millie in the White House China room in our illustration, where the state dinner china is stored and displayed after seeing a historic frozen in time photo from the White House website, where Barbara Bush and Millie were both in the china room. And we thought how fun Millie had actually been in that room. So that's all the time we have for stories behind the letters, but Kathy will share a final recap on research.
First, we want to thank some students that asked a question I was going to talk about in this recap. The third graders at Explorers Elementary wanted to know how we could find out about those early presidential pets. Again, that's when we turned to the Library of Congress website. It's a fantastic archive, again, put online for us. So we both worked at our desks at home, just like you could work at school or at home without leaving or traveling, much as we'd like to. You can find sources about early presidents online at the Library of Congress. Also, there's a lot of historic home sites and collections that are pretty easy to find. And of course, as you go on more recent times, you will love the presidential library sites. Happy for us, we don't have to travel and you don't either. You can look at these, you can look at the National Archives, and with those, you will find just gems of stories on any subject. And for us, it was pets. Speaking of pets, we have one little update on our book. I'm going to ask Janice to share that with you.
Well, already the story of President Biden's pets has changed so much since we wrote our book. In December, President Biden shared news of a new puppy joining the family, Commander, a German Shepherd pup that was a birthday gift to the president. And then in late January, the First Lady shared photos of Willow the cat on Twitter, and lots of news stories soon followed announcing and welcoming the first feline, another cool cat for the media to follow. And here's a picture of my puppy, Teddy Roosevelt, watching a message from First Lady Jill Biden and new puppy Commander during the Puppy Bowl just before the Super Bowl recently. We wanted to share with you that you can research and follow the Biden's pets or any presidential pets that we've talked about here, or discover your own through your own research.
Thank you again for having us share our stories and how much fun we had in putting this book together. I have a feeling Claire has some questions for us.
I'm back and I have a lot of questions for you from
Okay.
the audience. First, I just want to say congratulations. What a beautiful book you've created. It has so much great, it tells a story and it has so much great factual information in it too. I love nonfiction. I know a lot of our viewers do too. And I hope it inspires a lot of our viewers to use our presidential libraries in their research. Because like you said, they're just like treasure troves of great information and cool photos too. So lots of questions. We will get to as many as we can in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so, guys. Okay. We have a question that comes to us from second graders at Woodside Elementary. Hi, Woodside Elementary, as well as fifth graders at Rosewood Elementary. Hi, Rosewood Elementary. They both want to know, what do you think was the most unique or unusual animal to live in the White House?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Woodside and Rosewood Elementary. One animal that comes to mind for us is Josiah the Badger, as a pretty unusual pet to have at the White House or in any home. A little girl gave a baby badger to President Teddy Roosevelt during a cross-country train trip, and he did indeed bring that baby badger home. It didn't stay long at the White House. It did go to his family home in Sagamore Hill. And his young son Archie especially loved that badger. We found historical photos from the Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson State University of Archie actually carrying the badger and holding it right around the middle, as it got to be quite a large badger. And if you've ever seen a picture of a badger, if you go online and look, they have long claws. They dig extensive burrows. So that is a pretty fierce animal to have in your home and have as a pet playing with your kids. He
So that's a
eventually
good,
went to the zoo, to the Bronx Zoo.
so it seems like from your book, several pets could not stay at the White House and found probably a more comfortable home at the zoo.
That's
We had a
true.
question from second and third graders from Madison Heights, Michigan, and they want to know, are there certain expectations for pets that live in the White House? And I think they mean behavior wise.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Madison Heights. That's a good question. Behavior, but I want to go back to early on. Remember, we talked about the cow? Early on, those early animals, the expectation was they had a job to do. Chickens need to lay eggs, cows needed to, and milk, horses were for transportation. But as you get later to pets that were just for the family, those White House rules could be like the rules at your house. Now, sometimes they had little parts outside and cages, but otherwise, there were rules like everyone else. And sometimes, if it wasn't comfortable, that pet or animal would find a new home. You may have seen even recently, Major, the beloved Biden pet, just didn't fit with that active White House life. So now Major is living at a family home with friends and not at the White House. So again, rules, and the White House could be big, but it still could be busy.
Well, a lot of our viewers are asking about your process and about how long it took. I know that sometimes when we write something, we're so excited about it and we just want it to be finished, right? Can you talk a little bit about how long it took you to write your book, edit your book, and then have it published?
I think it was about, I'm looking back past the idea. You say it was almost 6 months when you go from start to end. So it takes a lot of time. And Janice and I talked a lot in our separate places on the phone daily, very much into research. We split up the alphabet, but then we came back and we did a lot of revisions. A lot. Sometimes we changed the whole page because we were changing the animal. So that meant a new poem, a new animal, new facts.
And we also did a lot of research to help our artists too, to choose the locations. We wanted to show locations, interesting rooms and places in and around the White House. So we helped research what would make sense for each president and what period. Like President Truman is the one who started the bowling. It had a bowling alley put in, so we used that as inspiration for our goat. And in the China room with Millie, because she'd actually been in the China room. And so we tried to find unique places to show along the way too. And so we did historical research to help our artist, and that was a collaboration as well.
Okay, we have some friends in fifth grade at Central Woodlands in Ada, Michigan, and at Town Line Elementary in Grand Rapids, as well as a third grade friend from Wyoming, Michigan. They all want to know the same thing. They want to know, at what age did you start writing? And also, what or who inspired you to become a writer? And not just Meet the Pets, but to become a writer and a journalist in the first place.
Yep. Well, I had a high school journalism teacher named Bonnie Brown, and she was my very favorite teacher ever. She taught journalism and English. She was the newspaper advisor and the yearbook advisor also. And I loved her classes. I took all of her classes, and she was my very favorite teacher. And I always say, if she were the shop teacher, I would be designing furniture. So she was that impactful on my life, and I was a co-editor of the yearbook, and I also was an editor of the newspaper. And so I had her all my every year and for several classes each semester all through high school. And she became not only a special teacher, but a dear friend in my life.
And for me, first, lots of great teachers. I can't thank them enough, and my parents, and a lot of great authors because I love to read. But it was a project when I was a Girl Scout in elementary school that got me started on journalism. Our troop was assigned for 1 month to do a newsletter for the elementary school. I shout out to Birmingham Schools, Greenfield Elementary. It was a little scary project, but once we did it, I knew I wanted to make journalism my career and continued on with that. I also like to write a lot of fictional stories when I was in elementary, just for fun.
Well, here's sort of a fun question. Through your research, were you able to find out if George Washington had a pet?
He
Well,
did have pets.
Yeah, Janice,
He had
you go on that.
horses.
Yeah.
He had dogs. Yep.
Mhm.
He had many pets. Yes.
Okay,
And
lots and lots of questions here. Okay, well, let's see. First, this is more of a comment. We have a grandma watching today with her two grandchildren. Her name is Barbara Burnham, and she's from Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And they just wanted to let you know how much they love your book. They received it as a
Thank you.
Christmas gift. So they just wanted to let you know
Thank
that.
you.
But we also have a question from some second grade friends in Grand Rapids. Has any president ever owned an eagle? Now, I think they're asking that because there's something special about eagles in our country, right? And they're wondering if that has ever been a White House pet.
well, a lot of presidents have had birds, and eagles have been presidential pets too. We know that James Buchanan, we believe, had two bald eagles as pets, and there were several other presidents that also had had birds. So we would have to do a little research because it's been a little more than a year since we were working on our book, but we do remember that yes, indeed, there were presidents that had eagles that were believed to have eagles for pets.
And our artist had fun on the cover. Um, the true presidential seal has an eagle, but if you look closely at ours, she had a little fun with having it holding some pet food. So yes, that's a big part of our story here.
So Mr. Lloyd's class wants to know a little bit more about you. They would like to know how you met and what you're working on right now. Are you still writing for a newspaper, or what's your writing project now?
Well, Janice and I are actually trying to work on some other books. We aren't at the newspaper, but we are constantly working and juggling several stories. I think we usually keep those to ourselves before we know they're out, but one is going to be some kind of biography. And constantly, Janice and I are on the phone and texting when we see an idea that sometimes can be off the news, sometimes in history, because we both like history. So I won't reveal all those, but we're working on books, not at the newspaper.
And Kathy and I met at the Detroit Free Press. We worked together on Yak's Corner, our young readers section. And so that's when we started working together more than 25 years ago. It's been almost 27 years since we've been working together. And we are working on two projects right now, which we are pitching and hoping to find a publisher for. So yeah.
Fingers crossed.
We'll cross ours too for you. We're excited for you. This question is actually just for Janice. Students at Endeavor Elementary are curious about your dog's name and what inspired you to name him that.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt, I have two dogs, Hamilton and Teddy Roosevelt, but my puppy Teddy I got after, actually around Thanksgiving time last year. So after we finished our book, so he's kind of a nod to our presidential pets book. But Teddy is named after Teddy Roosevelt. He actually looks like a teddy bear, and Teddy Roosevelt famously influenced the teddy bear, was named after him when he basically didn't shoot a bear on a hunting trip, and so the media ran lots of stories about that, and some toy makers decided to make a bear called Teddy's Bear, and then it kind of became Teddy Bear instead of that. But you can research that as well. I have Teddy right here. I can show you what. I'm sorry, my image isn't very good today. But here's little Teddy. He looks like a teddy bear.
Hi, Teddy Roosevelt. Oh, he is adorable. So a lot of us watching probably have pets that we take care of. And this question comes from FCMA 4th through 6th graders. They have a great question. How does the president have time to take care of pets when running the country at the same time?
We both can probably tell a little bit of each one. First, remember that some of these presidents we talked to had children in the White House. So we know that Chelsea Clinton was there with Sox, and many presidents, as we even talked about Bo, had a family there. So I would have to research, but I think just like for our family when I was growing up and for my kids, they were expected to help with the pets. So remember, if they had children there, that might be a chore. And staff people certainly help with the pets. But I'd say it's almost not as surprising as you think in your family. Your mom and dad can be busy working, but you know what? It's pretty fun to have a pet. I grew up with a cat and then later had two cats in my home. It's kind of a fun break to have a chance to have a pet at home to relax with. And the White House has family quarters. So I think it's less surprising than you think. But yes, they have sometimes their children and staff to help out.
And I think I remember reading the Park Service staff has helped too in taking care of the first dogs. And we know that there are lots and lots of pictures with President Gerald Ford with Liberty in the Oval Office. So he definitely made time for his dog and loved his dog very much. And there are lots of pictures of President Obama with Bo. And I think that animals are wonderful stress reliever, and just spending time with your pets can help after a very busy and stressful day being president.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, lots of our friends want to know this question. Okay, and I want to try to give shout outs to all of them. So 5th graders at Southwood Elementary and Rosewood and Central Woodlands, and a 4th grader watching all the way from Stenwood School in Virginia, as well as Miss Wysocki's 4th graders at St. Paul the Apostle, all want to know, after all of this research and writing, do you have a favorite White House pet?
Kathy?
Okay, well, I will start. I, of course, loved Socks because I am a feline fan, but my second favorite was that crazy cow. I just couldn't get over all the headlines of her adventures. People even wrote songs about her. So those are my two favorite. And Janice, I think, has two others.
Yep. And I loved Pauline too, because she was a wonderful cow. But I also loved reading about Rebecca the raccoon. She was certainly a huge celebrity in her day. And again, I've had golden retrievers myself, and they are such loving dogs. So I really am a fan of Liberty's.
Oh, me too. Okay, we're going to do probably 2 more questions here. And this is a book, or sorry, a question from Ms. Bush's class at Central Woodlands. This is a writing process question. What do you do when you get stuck or can't think of an idea when you're writing?
That's a great question. Well, one thing for us, and I think that you could do this in school sometimes, I love working in a team. So I will say this, when you have a group project or if you can pair up, it's really helpful or just with someone at home to bounce ideas off. I need to not just be me talking to myself. And sometimes it's like word games you play with one word leads to another. So one thing I did was probably get on the phone to Janice up north and say, ah, I'm stuck. I was supposed to think of the letter A and here's what I can't figure out and read part of my poem. So that's one suggestion is anyone, even if they're not working on a project with you, talk to someone about it. I bet you come up with something. Janice may have some other good ideas.
I think also if you're working on one thing and it's really giving you trouble, then maybe turn to something else, maybe another part of the story, or for us, a different letter when we were working on the alphabet book. So sometimes if you just give yourself a little break from that and then return to it fresh, maybe the next day or maybe an hour later, sometimes another idea will click for you then. But yes, and Kathy and I, as writing partners, we really bounce things off each other all the time and really collaborate. In this book, we divided the alphabet in half, and Kathy started A, I worked on B, and so on. And so we would come back to each other on our research and tell each other what we were thinking and what animal, what name, what we were doing. And then with our poetry, we really just kind of got on the phone for sessions, and we would kind of talk them out and rhyme together and no, that's not good, how about this, and we'd first decide what little story we were trying to tell in a short space with our poem, and then we would go from there and really bounce ideas and try to improve each other's ideas and help each other along. So we're a real team.
You sure are. Well, this final question comes to us from fifth graders in Jenison, Michigan. And it's actually a fun question for everyone to think about, even our viewers, because we've learned from your book that there's been lots of dogs and cats in the White House, but also some pretty unique animals too. So let's imagine we've become president, we're moving into the White House. What pet would you want as your White House pet? So Janice and Catherine, I know you have your own pets that you'd probably take along, right? I mean, of course, Teddy Roosevelt's going to go with you. But if you could have any pet in the world at the White House, what would you pick?
Any pet. Well, I love all animals, but I think the White House is probably best suited for our more traditional domestic animals. Cats or dogs are probably going to thrive there because they have all those antiques and beautiful furnishings that you would have to take care of. So you wouldn't want a badger or an opossum or something like that. They just really, or raccoon inside your house, I think. So I would just be more traditional. And I have two dogs. So one is a boxer shepherd pit bull mix. His name is Hamilton, and he would come, and also Teddy, of course. So I would stick with dogs, and maybe I would add another dog, another golden retriever.
I agree with Janice. I actually, nowadays, I think I want animals to have the right kind of space and place. I don't have cats right now, but if I got into that big White House, I'm sure I would have room for 3 cats. And I'd also be walking over to that lovely zoo a lot. Nowadays, the Smithsonian Zoo does so many interesting things and research and takes in rescue animals and also does things where they help other countries. So I would be having my cats, but I'd be being a zoo visitor too.
Great answers. Well, Kathy and Janice, thank you so much. You have taught us so much about nonfiction writing, about White House pets. What a fun topic to think about, to research, to write about. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I also want to thank all of our students and teachers that joined us today. And I'd like to let you know that Meet the Pets, if you'd like a copy for your classroom or your library at home, you can buy that book on Amazon.com, as well as from lots of our local booksellers here in Michigan. Also, teachers will have the link to this program up on our website in the next few days if you'd like to share it with other teachers or re-watch it. And from everyone here at the Gerald Ford Foundation in Grand Rapids, Michigan, remember to check out that website, devoslearningcenter.org. Happy President's Day. Once again, thanks for joining us. Thanks to Catherine and Janice, and we're all going to give you a round of
Oh,
applause
thank you.
from our
Oh, thank you.
classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.